You may be in the market for a brand new camera, or maybe you're in the market to upgrade, or just doing a little bit of research of what's out there. Today, I'm gonna give you 10 reasons why you have to consider the Canon C70. Number one, I'm gonna start you off with a heater, but as always, I'm gonna save the best for last. 16 and a half stops of dynamic range. That is incredible. Picture quality is so important, especially when it comes to client work. And at the end of the day, dynamic range is a great measure of exceptional picture quality. Number two, this camera has the ability to record 12-bit internal RAW to SD cards. At the end of the day, that's the only camera I could think of that does that, which is incredible. The average person out there is filming in 10-bit, and 10-bit is good, but make no mistake, 12-bit RAW is great. Number three, the DGO sensor. That stands for dual gain output, and essentially it has a sensor for the highlights and it has a sensor for the shadows, and it merges both together for incredible picture quality. The only other camera I could think of that does this is the RE Alexa, which is incredible. And at the end of the day, when you pair this incredible sensor with its ability to do 12-bit RAW internal, and you add 16 and a half stops of dynamic range, when it comes to picture quality, I truly believe this camera is in a league of its own when it comes to the price and its main competition. Number four, the battery life in this camera is not good. It is actually great. From every single camera I've ever had, and I've had plenty, this camera does the best with its internal battery. The battery that came with the camera, I can operate on for 3 hours. And there's another battery that you could buy from Canon that'll give you up to 6 hours of operation. And I actually have both. So those two batteries help me film for the entire day, and that is really hard to beat. Number five, as I've already stated, I've had a ton of cameras in my lifetime, and with every single one of them, I needed a monitor because I use false color, waveform, and focus peaking all the time. This camera has all three built in internal to its LCD screen, so I have the luxury of leaving the monitor at home. And when it comes to minimalistic filmmaking, something I live for, that is really hard to beat. Number six, full disclosure, I was a Sony user for most of my professional life. I still have my Sony cameras today. I still use them on some productions. And at the end of the day, I was a prime candidate for an FX6. And I was considering pulling the trigger and buying this camera. But the major deal killer that bothered me the most was the top handle. And sound is an important part of what I do. And if I take off the top handle off the Sony FX6, the camera has no sound because everything is built into the top handle. And if I want to put the camera on a gimbal, or if I want to strip it down as minimalistic as possible, I am married to that top handle, and that was a deal killer. The Canon C70 has 4 channels of audio built directly into the body. And again, when it comes to minimalistic filmmaking, that is incredible. Number seven, every single camera I've ever owned had to be rigged out. Why? Because it needed a monitor, it needed a V-mount battery, and a couple of other things. And what makes the Canon C70 special, in my humble opinion, is it does not need to be rigged out at all. It is the only camera where I take the internal battery that it came with, I pop it in, I throw on a lens, I throw on a mic, and I am good to go. With the 12-bit internal RAW recording, 16 and a half stops of dynamic range, this camera is good to go. The false color, the focus peaking, the waveforms are built right into it, as I've mentioned earlier, and I could film and experience the most freedom I've had with a camera to date, and that is extremely hard to beat. Number 8, internal NDs. You hear this all the time. Every single YouTuber has ever said it. You haven't lived until you've experienced internal NDs, and I would always hear these things that I would always say, who cares? I have screw-on filters. It's not the end of the world, and I got by just fine. But the first time I got the Canon C70, I hadn't even used it yet. I was packing my bag for a shoot, and I threw the camera body in there, and I reached for my filters. And at that moment, I realized I don't need these anymore. And for some reason, that felt amazing. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I think it all comes down to leaving the majority of the gear and the time that it takes to apply the gear at home is ultimate freedom. Number 9, this camera has 13 customizable buttons on its body. I have customized these buttons to my need, and I'm at the point where I don't even need the menu. I operate the entire camera on the customizable buttons on the body, and that at the end of the day feels incredible as well. Number 10, I've saved the best for last. A lot of people give this camera a hard time because it has a Super 35 sensor, but the fact that it has a Super 35 sensor and an RF mount, it is a prime candidate for a speed booster. And I love speed boosters, not because they give you a full frame equivalent, but because they supercharge the average lens and give them an extra stop of light. And that is a game changer. I'll give you an example. I do not like zoom lenses just because the f-stop at the end of the day is a f2.8, and I really enjoy lenses that are an f2.0 or below. And the fact that I could take a zoom lens at an f2.8, apply it to the speed booster, and it gets an extra stop of light, that lens becomes an f2.0, and automatically I experience a little bit more freedom when it comes to not having enough light to work with. But here's the best part. My favorite lenses are the Canon C70 lenses. I use these lenses all the time. I talk about them all the time. And the fact that the majority of them are at a T1.5 is incredible. But when I apply them to the speed booster, they become, thanks to the extra stop of light that they get from the speed booster, a T1.0. And I'm no scientist. I'm pretty sure that's night vision. I could be wrong. But that, at the end of the day, is a game changer. As always, I'm just paying forward personal opinions and experience. If you found any value in this, hit the like button and make sure you subscribe because there's a lot more on the way.